Hi everyone, have a good day. My name is John Angelo Rensalvi Berburan, and today we're going to talk about different types of personality disorders. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss the Cluster B personality disorders. Alright, if you've asked to describe your friend's personality, like you would say he's creative, he's easygoing, he's hardworking, and sometimes nervous in groups. Basically, you summarized their personality traits on how they think and on how they act. Sometimes personality traits can be harmful if interferes with our personal life, our work, and social setting. So, in this case, we consider that an individual has a personality disorder. The DSM-5, or the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders in 5th edition, lists 10 different personality disorders that are split in 3 different clusters. Refers to as the Cluster A, the Cluster B, and the Cluster C. So in this presentation, I'm going to present the Cluster B personality disorders that includes Antisocial personality disorder, Borderline personality disorder, Histrionic personality disorder, and Narcissistic personality disorder. All for this have genetic relationship with mood disorders like depression and bipolar disorder, as well as substance abuse disorder. Okay, now we're going to discuss the antisocial personality disorders, or the ASPD. It is a deeply ingrained and rigid dysfunctional thought process that focuses on social responsibility with exploitive, delinquent, and criminal behavior with no remorse. So people with antisocial personality disorder are among the most puzzling of the individuals and are characterized as having a history of failing to comply social norms. So, in this personality disorder, from the word antisocial, like don't get along, this sounds like they don't get along with others. But in fact, it's the opposite. They can be really charming and often use that to manipulate others for their personal gain. So this individual disregard moral values and societal norms and have little empathy and poor impulse control. So in these combinations makes them willing to hurt others if it helps them, making them prone or prone to aggressive and unlawful behavior, and at time earning a label as sociopath or psychopath. Yeah. So in fact, individuals with this disorder tend to be overrepresented in prison populations and of higher rates of substance abuse. These individuals typically fails to show remorse or guilt and rarely accept responsibility for any of harm they cause others. This disorder is also unique, and that individual must be 18 years old and have a history of conduct disorder in order to meet the diagnosis. Okay, let us consider the case of Ryan, the thrill seeker. Okay, it started in his 17th birthday in psychiatric hospital where he had an interview with his therapist. And the serious incident involved was a 15-year-old girl named Anne who attended class with Ryan in the hospital school. Ryan told her that he was going to get himself discharged and get in trouble. So when the therapist asked Ryan about it, if he was bothered, he replied that he's not really bothered at all. Ryan did a lot of things that deviates norms. He also used drugs, and with his friends, there are times they go to cemetery look for grave and digging up remains, collecting skulls for their party. And then he steals money from his parents and going back to his on the street until one evening, just all of those things he just did. And until one evening, Ryan said because of doing those several bad things, he was kept on arrested. He was always arrested because of those terrible things he have done always. Just one evening after several sessions with his therapist, just one evening, he said that he can feel or he have seen many error in his ways and felt bad, and he was sad because he hurt his parents. His speech was moved his parents to tears and gratefully thanked the therapist for curing their son. But it was just a trick. Ryan tricked them all. After being discharged to a drug rehabilitation program, because that time he was being in that rehabilitation program because of using drugs, and because he was discharged because his parents believed that he regret all that he did. After 2 days or within 2 days, he just stolen all their cash and went back to his friends and to drugs. And when he was 20, after one of his many arrests for theft, he was diagnosed as having antisocial personality disorder, and his parents never summoned the courage to turn him out again. Never. That is Ryan, the thrill seeker. Okay, now the diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Okay, this one, first is the failure to conform to social norms. Yes, with respect performing acts that are grounds for arrest. So they don't care of the norms. That's it. And deceitfulness, they are very deceiving, and then they keep on lying and or used good alibi, something like that. And then they have impulsivity, irritability or aggressiveness, reckless disregard for safety of self or others, consistent irresponsibility, lack of remorse, or they have no guilt. Those are the diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder. And the more of this were on the PDF. Okay, clinical descriptions of antisocial personality disorder. Individuals with antisocial personality disorders tend to have long histories of violating the rights of others. They are often described as being aggressive because they take what they want, indifferent to the concerns of other people. Lying and cheating seem to be the second nature to them. So they show no remorse or guilt or even concern over devastating effects of their actions. No, they don't care. They have no remorse. They don't feel any guilt with their devastating or distracting or damaging actions. And then the substance abuse is common, and it occurs in 60% of people with antisocial personality disorders. Okay, next is borderline personality disorders, which is individuals have an unstable moods. People with borderline personality disorder lead tumultuous lives. Their moods and relationship are unstable, and usually they have a poor self-image. These people often feel empty and are at great risk of dying by their own hands. So they got from an intense joy 1 minute to rage the next minute, just something like that. And this leads to intense. Sometimes wonderful relationships starts generally becomes dramatic and sour over time. This pattern is sometimes called stable instability because the only consistent thing is the instability. And these people often use a defense mechanism called splitting, where people are the important things, like a job, are seen as either completely good or completely bad. In addition, people with borderline personality disorder are often terrified of abandonment and even do extreme things like threat or suicide to keep someone from leaving them. That is how desperate um, people with borderline personality disorders. Alright, let us consider the case of Claire, a stranger among us. Claire has her hair cut short because when things were not going well, she cut her own hair. She always wore long sleeves where scars and cuts were hid she made herself. She's also a smoker, and then Claire's parents was divorced and both of them abandoned her emotionally. Her father was alcoholic and beaten her mother always. She has poor performance in school and had low opinion to herself. She often said that she was stupid and ugly, yet she was neither. Um, she often threatened to kill herself, though her friends didn't guess that she was serious. Her friends were confused of her behavior because she seems unpredictable. Claire married twice, and both times had passionate and stormy relationships. She tried to stab her first husband during a violent rage, and she tried many drugs but mainly used alcohol to deaden the pain or to kill the pain. She was diagnosed with depression and borderline personality disorder. Alright, that's Claire, a person diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Okay, here, the diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder listed the frantic effort to avoid abandonment, a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships, identity disturbance, impulsivity that potentially self-damaging, such as spending, having sex, reckless driving or binge eating, recurrent suicidal behavior or threats, affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood, feelings of emptiness, inappropriate intense anger, or difficulty controlling her anger. Another one is severe dissociative symptoms. Those are the diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorders. Alright, the clinical descriptions of borderline personality disorder. They tend to have a turbulent relationships, fearing abandonment but lacking control over their emotions. They often engage in behaviors that are suicidal, self-mutilative, or both cutting, burning, or punching themselves. People with this personality disorder are often intense, going from anger to deep depression in a short time. Well, borderline personality disorder is a mental health disorder that affects the way a person think. It also affects the way a person feel about themselves or about yourself and others. And of course, it can cause problems in their everyday life. Alright, histrionic personality disorder. Individuals with such disorder tend to be overdramatic and often seem almost to be acting, which is why the term histrionic means theatrical in manner. Alright, the key feature is attention seeking and excessive emotionality. We sometimes listen to manipulate the situation to draw more attention to themselves. For example, they might act inappropriately flirtatious or telling over dramatized stories to remain the center of attention. This behavior results in superficial relationships with lots of acquaintances, but few deep connections with good friends, if they have any good friends. Because then, people view them as shallow, flighty, and egocentric. So that's why people with histrionic personality disorder have few friends. Okay. Alright, let us consider the case of Pat, always on stage. Okay, Pat is single and she often dressed flamboyant. She is teaching with children with disabilities. She's exaggerated when she was praising somebody. Her words and comments are often flattering. She often complains of various illnesses and injuries. Just like, for example, she will say that she had a fall in the parking area, or she twisted her neck looking out of the window, and that interferes with her job. She was disorganized and she made promises to people that are impossible to keep. When she broke the promise, she usually made up a story to gain sympathy and compassion. Okay, just like, for example, here's the event. She promised a mother of one of her students that she would prepare a massive and unique birthday party. Yeah, for the daughter of the mother, but forgot about the promise until the mother showed up with just cake and juice. Yeah, and the boyfriend she had changed almost weekly. Haba ng hair. Yes. She always described her boyfriend as, okay, he's the only man I've ever met. Or sometimes she say that um he's the man that I want to spend the rest of my life with. Mga ganon. Okay. When it became clear that she's probably lose her job, she managed to manipulate several of the male teachers and the assistant principal to recommend her for a new job in a nearby school district. And then a year later, she was still in the job in the school district, but she was moved twice in two different classrooms. And according to the teachers she worked with, that Pat is still lacking close interpersonal skills. And then after suffering a long period of depression, Pat sought a help to a psychologist, which later diagnosed her as having not just depression, but she was also diagnosed as having a histrionic personality disorder. Alright, that's it. Okay, now the diagnostic criteria for histrionic personality disorder. Okay, first is uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not center of attention. So, very clear. Number two, interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive, or provocative behavior. Seductive. I like it. Next is displays shallow expression if emotions may be over dramatized, something like that. Uses physical appearance to draw attention to self. Yeah. Next is speech lacking in detail. Maybe she would express that, oh, my day and my outing or my date was very cool, but she cannot express a detailed information about what you just said. Next is speech lacking in detail. That's it. Exaggerated expression of emotion is suggestible. She's just easy to be influenced with, and considers relationship to be more intimate than they actually are. That's it. Alright, for clinical description. People with histrionic personality disorder are inclined to express their emotions in an exaggerated fashion. For example, hugging someone they have just met or crying uncontrollably during a sad movie. They also tend to be vain, self-centered, and uncomfortable when they are not in the limelight. People with histrionic personality disorder are often seductive in appearance and behavior, and they are typically concerned about their physical appearance. They spend great money for unusual things like jewelry, and they became upset if others will not praise them. Again, they are characterized by exaggeration, and they are seductive. Oh, ulit lang seductive, ha? Okay, and over concern of their physical appearance. Yeah, yun, basta characterized with, oh my god, characterized with exaggeration and seductiveness. May seductiveness ba? Yeah, seductive. They are seductive. Alright, finally, we're in the last part of Cluster B personality disorder, the narcissistic personality disorder. We all know people who think highly of themselves, perhaps exaggerating their real abilities. They consider themselves somehow different from others and deserving of special treatment. So, okay, narcissistic personality disorder, characterized by an individual who have a grandiose self-image where they think they are more attractive, they are more intelligent, and more talented than they are. Since they believe that they are so special and expect to be treated as such, obsessively demanding the best of everything. It's saying to themselves that I am the best and I deserve the best. Yun yung parang madalas na linyahan nila ganon. They also think their ideas are inherent by the best and that other people should understand this and support them. So parang lagi niyang sinasabi sa sarili niya na my ideas are the best. Ganon. And behind this mask, though he's very confident, but behind this mask of all true confidence lies a fragile self-esteem that is vulnerable to slightest criticism, even to slightest criticism, konting criticism lang, with them lashing out when they feel slighted insult. Oh my god, there's a cat. So, these people typically comes across as being pretentious, self-centered, and entitled. And this is made worse by the fact that they are lack empathy and are often oblivious to others' feelings. And these people is often exploitative of those around them and only get involved in situations that advance their personal agenda. Yeah, that's it. They're exploitative. They use people just for their own interests, and they will going to involve in situation that they think they can benefit on it. That's narcissistic personality disorder. Alright, let us consider the case of Willie. It's all about me. Okay, he is an office assistant in a small law firm, and in his early 30s, he had poor job histories. He never stayed employed at the same place for more than 2 years, and he likes to talk, and any conversation was quickly redirected in a way that kept him the center of attention. This type of integrating manner was welcome at first, but soon annoyed other staff. He is self-centered and have a controlling nature. Really got a problem with his job. No, in his job, he got a problem. They had a disciplinary meeting, and when he was being confronted, I just make the story short because it's a bit long. When he was being confronted, he blamed others and insisted that his performance were good. His performance was exceptional, and after calming down, when he got calmed down, he revealed a problem, a drinking problem, and a history of depression, and as well as family problems or multiple family problems they have experienced, and he believed that this contributed to his difficulties he experienced right now. And after that, Willie then diagnosed with major depression and as well as narcissistic personality disorder. His behavior, including lateness and incomplete work, resulted in his termination. So Willie reapplied for another position 2 years later, but he only lasted for 3 days, showing up late to work on his second and third day he was still late. Okay, if we're going to observe that because of his behavior and performance, he was being terminated on his work, and then after being diagnosed by a psychologist, he cannot still change and control his behavior, and he got a problem with his job. He cannot change his behavior to conform to even the minimal standards needed to be successful at work. That is Willie. It's all about me. Alright, now let's proceed to the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, first is grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupied with fantasies. They think that they are brilliant, they're beautiful, and then believes that he or she is special. Yes, they believe in that. Request excessive admiration, has a sense of entitlement or unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment, is interpersonally exploitive. So they take advantage to others to achieve something they want. Lacks empathy in a way that unwilling to recognize or identify others and the needs of others, the needs and feelings of others. Often envious, shows arrogant, naughty behavior or attitudes. Those are the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Alright, now let's proceed to the clinical descriptions of people with narcissistic personality disorder. People with narcissistic personality disorder have an unreasonable sense of self-importance and are so preoccupied with themselves that they lack sensitivity and compassion for other people. Yes, they aren't comfortable unless someone is admiring them. They have unexaggerated feelings and fantasies of greatness called grandiosity. They often expect a great deal of special attention, and because they often fail to live up their own expectations. They are often depressed. Alright, let's proceed to the treatment. And I just make a general treatment, explanation for treatments to all the cluster B personality disorders. Alright, now there is a considerable overlap between personality disorders. Just like, for example, people with borderline personality disorder might also meet the diagnostic criteria for the antisocial personality disorder, the schizotypal personality disorder, and as well as avoidant personality disorder, which are part of cluster A and cluster C respectively. Again, there is a considerable overlap between personality disorder because there are disorder that sometimes meet the criteria for antisocial that belong to cluster B, or schizotypal that belong to cluster A, and avoidant that belong to cluster C. Okay, in general traditional psychoanalytic therapies, it is ineffective for cluster B personality disorders. Okay, again, ineffective for cluster B personality disorder. Cluster B are the antisocial personality disorder, the borderline personality disorder, the histrionic, and the narcissistic personality disorders. Those are the cluster B. According here, psychoanalytic therapies are ineffective to cluster B personality disorder. Bakit kaya? Well, it's because people with this disorder that belongs to cluster B often cannot handle the strong negative emotions that come with challenges to one's self-evaluation. So, there are some specific treatments that can work well through, just like the dialectical behavioral therapy, which targets the specific thoughts and behavior and can be pretty helpful to people or to individuals with borderline personality disorder. Okay, so in just my own opinion, I just think why this disorders from the cluster B is difficult to treat. Well, in just my own opinion, antisocial is very difficult for me to treat because they have a tricky behavior, and they can even trick the clinicians. So it's very hard to believe that an antisocial um, people or an individual with antisocial personality disorder have already been cured to his or her ill, because they might just trick, or they just telling a lie, something like that. Well, the borderline, they have a fear of abandonment, and I think yes, it was right that it can be treated with this dialectical behavioral therapy, but it doesn't mean that they can completely treated or cured with such treatments, because it's very difficult or hard to deal when we talks about behavior. So next is histrionic. I think it's very difficult also because of their manipulative behavior. They can control and manipulate people in their surroundings for their own sake. Nanggagamit siya, ganon. And then the narcissistic, it is also difficult to treat because they cannot control their behavior. Just like the case of Willie that we discussed the other day. Though he was being diagnosed by a psychologist, still, after 2 years, still he cannot change his behavior. So it's very hard to treat an individuals with the cluster B personality disorders like antisocial, borderline, histrionic, and narcissistic. Alright, I think we're done. But just a quick recap. again, cluster B personality disorders, or the antisocial, the borderline, histrionic, and narcissistic personality disorder. Thank you. Alright, thank you for watching. May you have learned something from the topic I discussed in the video. And now if you have any questions, just comment below. Just comment below. I will try to answer the questions or your questions based on my ability. And I hope you will comment the question as early as possible so that I can prepare and do more research about it. Again, thank you very, 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 very much. I miss you all.